Good morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ham, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios here in Morristown, New Jersey. My guest today is a tax advisor, coach, author, and speaker. He is also an ultra marathoner who is passionate about the lifetime benefits of endurance sports. Over the last 34 years, he has tested himself and triumphed over hundreds of endurance races throughout the world. His friends still call him Wayne the Train and the Grinder as he pushes to always finish no matter how bad the circumstances. He is Wayne Kurtz. Wayne, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you having me on.
It's great everyone. To have you on. Yeah, great to have you on. So can you explain to me what it's like to have a nickname like Wayne the Train? Because that's a badass nickname, just to be straight up with you.
Well, let's put it this way. So I don't know how old the audience is, but, I'm a Pittsburgh guy.
Okay.
I've lived in New York. I've missed 9/11 by one day. And this term came to me by a famous running back in Pittsburgh who played for the Pitt Panthers. Back in the day, it was the Pitt Panthers, called Wayne the Train DiBartolo.
Okay.
And the guy would just grind, and he was a fullback. I did not play football. I played baseball and swam in college. But it kind of started from there, which was the whole point when the fraternity days and all the way through my career of you kind of just keep grinding like a train. It keeps kind of moving on. And I've always viewed it that way in terms of life. You don't always have to be the fastest and the first there in execution of business or a race. It's always about finishing. So for me, that's how it kind of came. And my fraternity brothers kind of gave it to me, I think.
No, it's good. It's good to have people that can give you a nickname. And with a last name like Cam, you could imagine that I have several nicknames. But
I bet you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny. I also played college baseball. Fun fact. So we have that in common.
Cool.
But yeah. It's always cool to get like people on here that I find that out as we're talking. So sure. Played in college, coached college baseball for like 4 or 5 years. And now I'm selling title insurance and doing a podcast. So you could really imagine how my life has changed for the better. So, all right. So you're a tax advisor. That was the first thing.
I get it.
Yeah. Right. So you're a tax advisor. That's the first thing that I mentioned in your bio when I was introducing you. So we do a lot of real estate on these Tuesday episodes. This is going to be no different. So we are going to talk a little bit about real estate and then get into more of what makes you after that. But let's talk about, as a tax advisor, what are you seeing in the real estate industry right now?
So, I mean, I guess if I take a look I've got an accounting firm. We've got 3 different offices, 2 different states, 2 here in Pittsburgh and then 1 in Cleveland. And I have clients, I think now in, 48 states, I think at this point. So I'm getting old. So we got a lot of clients in a lot of different places who deal with a lot of different things. And I would say probably 40% of them deal in real estate in some form. Either they own real estate outside of their house. And I think like anyone else, I mean, the biggest thing I've seen in the conversations have been, holy heck, the value of my property has kind of gone through the roof. Do I take the gain? Do I defer the gain in a 1031 exchange? And more importantly, it's about the concern, and it is a concern when we're starting to see kind of across the country that prices are starting where they're not overbidding everything, especially in the residential market. That's what I'm seeing. And even on the West Coast, even in San Diego, where we finally start seeing prices go a little bit lower. And I think there's a concern of raising interest rates. If the Fed raises rates, which is a good expectation in the fall, what's that going to have the effect on housing prices? And we know the whole story when rates go up and housing prices. So I have to say there's been a lot on it. A lot has been related to a lot of our clients who have rental properties. I don't know how many of your audience have rental properties, but there's this big thing called depreciation recapture. And if any of you have rental properties, you know the tax pain that can happen if you've owned a property for a long period of time. And I'll give an example of one. I had a client this year, real quick story. He had a rental property, 3-4 unit property, made about $350,000 gross profit on it. He held it for 34 years. Okay. So it sounds great, but he had it for a long time. He sold it under an installment sale, solar financing. He actually had to pay more in tax than he actually received in the down payment on the note.
Perfect.
And it was sad. It was sad. He made all this gain and he paid back more tax than he actually got in his pocket. Now he's going to get it over time because it's a note.
Right.
But it was kind of sad to say you owed, whatever he owed, $75,000 in tax, and he only got 50 up front.
Yeah.
So it's like painful.
Yeah, no, it sounds painful. And you also mentioned in that answer before we even started recording that you said 4 1031 exchanges over the last like 45 days. I mean, obviously that plays into what you were just talking about, but do you think that's also with, like, I know there was a lot of concern that the Biden administration was going to, take 1031s off the table and you wouldn't be able to do that anymore, which I think maybe makes people a little bit more aggressive with doing something like that. No?
Yeah, it does. And I think everyone across the board was worried about just increase in tax rates, because it's at the end of the day, we've done so much in terms of all of the stimulus money. And it's at some point, I think we all sit back, forget politics. We know at some point taxes are going to go up. So I think a lot of it was driven about what was going to happen in 2021. Hey, it's like anything else in real estate. At some point, you got to sell. You got to take gain. It's like the stock market. Yep. And the nice benefit of that 1031 was, you can defer the gain as long as you've got things set up, right? You know the rules. It's you got to get those properties secured in 6 months. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting. I've done a couple. I've had two right now that we're working on, actually in one in New York, upstate New York, and then one right outside, right in the city. And they're huge gains. I mean, the gains are just enormous. So I got a feeling, real estate prices, worry about taxes, worry about the new administration. It's been a whirlwind. Yeah. When, for a lot of our clients, I mean, it's real estate makes up a good portion of their net worth. Yeah. Right? And it's just been 100%. And like, from my vantage point, just doing a lot of the title work on my end, it's just like the market itself has just been so crazy, commercial and residential, to be honest, especially here in New Jersey. Like you mentioned, prices going down. I mean, prices are still pretty high. I mean, people were bidding, like last year I had a client tell me he had someone put in a bid $150,000 over the asking price because he had gotten beat like 8 or 9 times on all these houses because the inventory was still so low, and was like, screw it, I'm just going for it. You know what I mean? So, but I'm assuming now I'm seeing some stuff kind of like at least come back to normal a little bit. And then obviously if rates go back to normal, then it's, we should see some normal stuff. But how does one go from all the stuff that we're talking about, where, on the technical side and tax advising and whatever, to being involved in endurance sports? Like, how does one make that jump? Is it just like, because you're sitting there crunching numbers all day, you're just like, I gotta run away from here? Is that what it is? I got to tell you, there's an aspect of it, Mike, that after like the last 2 years we're not even at 2 years, from PPP forgiveness loans to stimulus money to unemployment not being taxable to 18-hour to 19-hour work days for 4 months and then extension of tax deadlines. Yeah, I'd like hell to get out and just get myself away from it. And I have employees, so at least I have help. However, no matter what, whoever has an accounting firm or anything in tax, I mean, come tax time, which is, corporates are extended and everything goes, it's not just until April, it goes until September or October. But the big push has always been the first, that first quarter. But these last 2 years, we're extending the deadlines. There's an accounting firm in the country likes the extension of deadlines. It's just painful. You'd rather kill yourself to get through it. Okay. And absolutely. And then you're done. And then you get a reprieve. So I have started, I'd say the last, it's been like about 6 years in a row. After tax season, I take a pretty big dump away, meaning 30-day vacation on my own. I could be biking across the country, doing a race in Europe, something that's lasting typically a month. My wife goes wild, but now she's used to it. And as long as she can track me on the map with the dots and watch me, then she's okay. But I have to say, the one aspect of it is I've raced. So like you, I played baseball in college and I swam. And you got to you remember that time when it all ends. Oh yeah. When it ends, it's like, wow. Yeah. It's like a very empty feeling for sure. It is, and especially in team sports and individual. And it goes back, I think it's 35 or 36 years ago, I found a little entry form for a triathlon in Pittsburgh, and that started it all. So I have raced for 36 years. So I do it every year. Now I'm doing longer. These ones now are longer to kind of just mentally get away from COVID, get away from like all of it. Yeah, right. And I don't blame you. And I have to say, at the end of the day, these last several ones across the country racing, it really puts things in perspective of how great the country is. And I have stories that will blow you away, what people have done for us in these races. Literally in the middle of nowhere, someone takes you into their house and says, stay for the night. Yeah. You hear these stories, but until you actually see it and do it, it's like, my God, look at us. We look like a mess. We haven't showered in days. And the next thing you know, they're saying, well, why don't you stay for dinner? So I think the aspect of the human connection with great people around the country. I mean, that is nice. And you get away from the crazy hours that happens from end of January all the way through April.
Yeah. So you're talking about these races across the country, different parts of the world and all that kind of stuff. So for the listeners that don't really know what you're talking about, what are you talking about? Are they triathlons? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah. So, I mean, I started in triathlons and I've kind of stuck to it. I've done ultra marathons, ultra cycling, racing across America on your bike. But the most recent one is probably the one most interesting because it's fresh in mind. I'm now alive. I'm recovered. But actually on May 25th, I put on the race and actually hosted it and raced the race. The first across the country triathlon ever held as an official event. And it was basically doing one full triathlon, which consisted of a 31-mile swim in Orlando in a lake. Then we biked 3,073 miles all the way across to Death Valley National Park in California, where everyone's hearing how hot it is out there.
Yep.
And then in Death Valley, we got on the run and we started running from Death Valley National Park to just north of Malibu, 301 miles through the Mojave Desert, and finished at Point Mugu State Park in California at the ocean. And then I got to jump in the ocean at the end. This was, let's just say we did the southern route. So the whole route across was on the south. And I don't know if I've ever experienced anything like that in this record heat. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it was sketchy, at least, let's say that from that perspective, in terms of heat that I've never felt in my life. I mean,
right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Most of this past race was a triathlon, and then I've done bike races across the country, self-supported, so no help. You're on your own on the bike. You got the GPX map on your little cyclo computer, tells you kind of where to go. You eat at a gas station. You sleep in a ditch. You sleep in a cornfield. You do whatever you can to kind of get across. You can stay in a hotel, but you follow the route. And then we had support vehicles, actually friends of ours who you had to have support on the run because it's just too dangerous. I mean, you can't run for 6 days in the middle of the desert without any help.
Right. Yeah. I mean, all the other stuff sounds crazy too, but that, I mean, to me is just a wild, but like you're also talking about, like you just said, sleeping in a ditch, eating in a gas station. And I mean, I was writing it down as you were saying, 31 mile swim, over 3,000 mile bike ride in Death Valley, and then a 300 mile run through the desert, basically. Like, why would anyone do that? What kind of sick, twisted mind?
It's going, Mike. This is good. Yeah, I get that question a lot. All right, I'll go back to 2013. Quick little story. I'm in Lake Garda, Italy. So this is kind of the northern part of Italy, and we're doing the first ever, this is an official race, triple deca Ironman. So this is an Ironman a day for 30 straight days. On day about 22, there were only 6 of us left in the race, and myself and a gentleman from Spain were saying, would it be kind of cool to actually have a triathlon to go across a country? Yeah. And back at that time, there weren't self-supported bike racing. It was a completely different world back then. So the fire started from that. Okay. When the race finish ended, we had plenty of vino, and then we talked about it a little more. And it's always kind of been in my mind, boy, it'd be nice to host something like this. And I have a racing company. I've had a racing company for the last 15 years, put on events. And it's kind of interesting. And I thought, well, maybe it's a good time to do it. And then COVID hits. It was supposed to be in 2020, and then COVID hit.
Right.
But I was surprised. I thought there might be myself and maybe 2 other idiots that would sign up for this thing. Right. But there's a lot of people on this side who like to kind of go beyond. Yeah. You kind of see how far you can take it. And being sensible. I mean, making sure, we're not going to die.
Yeah. Right. Nobody wants that.
And it's like that was the aspect of it. But there is a whole world of ultra triathlons, like ultra running and ultra cycling, but just for triathlons. So we do races beyond the Ironman, where you go day after day, but most of them are held in a circular loop where you have crew and aid stations, real short little 1 mile loops. And you do hamster wheels for days on end. Yeah. This was to try to do a point to point. So the fire started in 2013, and then we couldn't pull it off in 2020. We had to reschedule it to 2021. And at this point, I still can't believe we actually did what we did. It was quite interesting, to say the least.
Right. So it sounds interesting. So you mentioned some of these stories, and if you could share a couple of them of like, maybe
Yeah.
meeting people across this trip, and like inviting them into your home or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I find that very interesting, because I think that that's part of it too. Like you're doing this crazy thing, and then you're in the middle of, I don't even know where, somewhere in the South, and someone's like, come into my home. And you're like, okay, because you're just maybe exhausted and just need a place to sleep. I don't know. So tell us about that.
It was, and it gets back to, no question, like humanity. I mean, and I have such unbelievable belief in this country when you see what happens, what people do, and it gives you a different perspective when this is over. And a big part of the book is going to be related to that. But as much negative as we get, it's amazing how many great people there are. So I'll give you the first one. I'll give you perspective. It's 97 degrees during the swim in Florida, and the humidity was about 80%. But the bigger point, since you're in Jersey and I'm in Pittsburgh, we understand dew point. The people in the West that were in the race, they didn't understand what dew point means.
Yeah.
The dew point was 69%.
Okay.
So that gives you 79%. 79, not in Pittsburgh, we get 69. It was 79% dew point. So we're in this swim. The water was hot. Get out. And we're first day of the bike. So we're swimming for almost 2 days. Okay. Get out. Arms are sore. Start up the bike. And now we're self-supported because you have some help on the swim. Go out on the bike, and we're past St. Augustine. So we're probably into day 2. And we're coming through this area. We're not on the panhandle yet. And we're in this little community, and we're trying to find, I'm with a couple of people racing, and we're like somewhat together, and it's getting dark. It's like, okay, I'm not going to ride all night tonight. Let's find a place to sleep, which means you just find a place anywhere.
Yeah.
Porta-John, sleep in Porta-John if you have to. If it's horrible weather, you sleep in a Porta-John. So for us, we're going through this little nice neighborhood. It was a beautiful area, and we're getting close to the coast. Long story short, there's a guy behind me, and everyone has cell phone numbers. You know who they are. And he apparently stopped. There was a fellow who was actually grilling out. It was Memorial Day weekend. Calls us. I'm ahead. Another lady's ahead of me. Hey, come on back. A gentleman here asked us if we'd be interested in anything to eat. Now, when you're racing across the country, the answer is always yes. You never say no. You take anything you can get. Now, we have money. You realize we got money on us. We can pay for it. Yeah. But no one, they get so upset if you try to pay for anything. So long story short, the gentleman invites us to his cookout, sets up chairs in his driveway. There's 3 of us, calls his wife on the phone, said, hey, I've got a couple of cyclists who are coming through. Can you stop for more barbecue? Get some more blah, 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 blah. His daughter's with him. Their daughter comes home. Long story short, I'm the salesperson. I'm kind of thinking in the back of my mind, that garage looks good versus the lake across the street, which is infested with mosquitoes. We're going to be bit to hell all night.
Right.
So if I got one inkling, if there's one opening that says, hey, are you sure you want to sleep out there? I was going to attack to get us in that house.
Yeah.
So the gentleman said that comes up at one point after all the food. And we're sitting, we don't know these people at all.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, we don't know these people at all. They're wonderful. And he said to me, all of us, he said, you sure you want to sleep out there? I mean, there's gators in the lake. I said, yeah, well, I'm going to jump in and jump out. And he said, I'm sure I can ask my wife. She's in the kitchen right now. I mean, we could probably get some room. And I said, of course, we can sleep in the garage, which then turned into no problem. Shower, we'll make beds for you. We have room. We're almost empty nesting with 3 strangers who look, I mean, you can imagine what we look like. I mean, we haven't showered yet. And it was amazing. We had dinner. They made us breakfast the next morning, and we left at 3 a.m. because we wanted to beat the heat. They had it all prepared.
Right.
So that's one. And then another one was actually, this happened multiple times, but in New Mexico and in Texas, it got bad in terms of heat stroke. I've never had heat stroke in my life. It's a big difference between heat stroke and heat exhaustion.
Yeah.
Where everything goes awry. You're not sweating. It was 127 degrees in New Mexico, and there's no one around. And long story short, one of the guys who was riding with us went up this road, and it's like, I'm ready to push the button for 911. I was that bad.
Yeah.
The lady was as well. He knocked on a ranch door. Rancher come out, said, no problem. Had a big, it's crazy. Had this big estate. He had a helicopter, him and his wife. They own hardware stores in Scottsdale, drives his 4x4, picks us up, feeds us for 7 hours. And we still had to make it to Scottsdale that night in 120 some degrees. And just the humanity of like someone in his wife. The most interesting story was this, Mike. So just imagine we come into this massive estate, and you can imagine what we look like, and you don't want to sit on the furniture. You don't know what to do.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh yeah, just sit on the furniture. It's fine. It's fine." His wife comes in, has no idea about any of this, walks in the door like nothing happened. So where are you guys from? You were out cycling. Not even the question of like, ask her husband, like, what are these people doing in the house?
Who the hell are these people? Yeah.
Yeah. Who are these crazy idiots?
Right.
Which then turned into, as I said, multiple hours. I mean, and it was really sketchy because, when you drink a gallon of water, you should probably be able to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
We were at almost 3 gallons and we still couldn't go to the bathroom. That's how bad we were. And it was really sketchy from a health perspective. But thank God they were there.
Yeah.
And thank God I had my wife, because my wife was like the savior of she didn't know the magnitude of this, including the spouses of the others, husband, and then wife, my wife, another wife. And I said, can you do me a favor? Here's an address. Send out, those little fruit things you send out to people, edible arrangements.
Yeah.
So I said, just FedEx these to these people. What reason? I said, well, they were super nice. They kept us in a house. I didn't explain anything else until I got home to tell her the stories of how bad it got. But I said, just send shit. Just send a Pittsburgh basket. Send stuff to them. Just because you didn't know what to do. I mean, we left money at a couple, and then they gave it to charity. They called us and left us messages. It's like, you shouldn't have left it any money. But it was amazing what people did. And it was it was at least 5 different places.
Right.
I mean, it was incredible. Like convenience store owners. Imagine in the middle of Texas, near Big Bend National Park, heat exhaustion stroke, coming in, laying in the middle of a convenience store, like a 7-Eleven in the middle of the floor for 4 hours with gallons of water. No problem at all. Happens all the time. Just lay there. And people are walking around us to go to the bathroom. I mean, it was nuts, but everyone's asking the question, are you guys okay? And that kind of thing. So there's the humanity was amazing the whole way of what people did, and they don't even know the race is going on.
No one they just think that you're just like maybe some local guy that, probably picked the wrong day to go on his bike. But no, you picked the wrong day to come through their town to get to the next one. But so I find that very interesting because I think it just says you find out a lot about people when you're on this trip. But I think it also, talking about this whole thing, I think you also, and I'm sure you would agree, during it and by the end of it, I think you figure out a lot about yourself, right? So like, I mean, how many people you said were on this particular race that we're talking about?
So we had 7 that started it because all the Europeans got stranded. Yeah. They couldn't get here, which was the sad part. Yeah. Because the race was full the year prior and everyone had registered. They couldn't get here. So we had 7. 2 of us officially finished. Michelle was ahead of me. So the 2 of us, and she's a good friend. But I think what it does do is you come back changed. Right. Every time I do one of these, and we did a ride during the middle of COVID last year in 2020, we left Pittsburgh and rode to Seattle during the middle of the riots and everything going crazy. We rode across and our whole idea was to support small business. So we went there to spend money. There's hotels, they got no one in them. No restaurants have anyone in them. You mask up, everyone's good. So for us, it was life-changing last year. And I think this year as well. Every time you come back, you are changed and it kind of sits in your brain for a period of time.
Right. Yeah, no, I would imagine. It's very cool. I don't think that I would ever do something like that, but you never know. I mean, maybe one day my whole thought process on that changes. But I mean, we talked about after the baseball thing and, like I used to run when I was a pitcher. So I didn't run a ton, but a lot of sprints and stuff. But once I was done with college, I'm literally never running again. That was the thing. Like, I'll, exercise and I'll keep myself in relatively good shape, but running, forget it. So But man, the bike thing sounds good. Maybe I'll try that. I don't know. But anyway, so we're talking about these triathlons and these races and all this kind of stuff, but you're also an author, right? Yeah. So how many books up to this point, not including the one that you're working on right now, have you written?
So I've written 4 books. 3 of them are related to the sport of triathlon. Okay. So 3 are triathlon and 1 was a goals book. So which was not related to triathlon. It was a goals technique that I kind of incorporated 20 some years ago. And the book was called Never Say I Wish I Had. And it was kind of this process. And I'm kind of analytical, as you can imagine, being in accounting and numbers.
Sure.
So I was very methodical. So that was 4 before. This is the 5th one. And this one will be purely about the race and what actually happened with the stories about, as I said, humanity across the country. So this is number 5.
Right. And so what's that experience been like, writing all these books? And is it good to get the message out? Like, do you have people reaching out to you to like learn more about what this is all about and what could potentially do for them, that kind of thing?
Yeah. And it for me, it was a give back to the sport. I mean, more than anything else, when I started the triathlon book, it was, and you think about like endurance athletes, you do a 5K, 10K marathon, they try an ultra marathon, they try a triathlon, you go through these steps, and then they do an Ironman. Well, there's a whole world beyond that. And it was to try to provide a little bit of exposure to the sport that we invented here in Huntsville, Alabama, the first ultra triathlon, double Ironman. So 2 times the Ironman distance. And Europe has taken it to another level because we have so many different things to do, but Europe, they have so many more participants than we do. So the idea was to make a user-friendly, you don't have to quit your job to train for a double Ironman. That's how it started. And I have to say, I recommend it heavily. Writing a book was just a lot of fun. I had a publisher and it was just a great experience to try to talk about something you're passionate about, to see if you could get someone, hey, you know what, I might give this a go. It wasn't about making money. It was just a give back to the sport, which has done a lot for me, of all the people I've met around the world because of the sport. I mean, so for me, it was that. And then the other versions were different components of that triathlon space in the ultra distance area. And then the goals book was just this thing that kind of started out of nowhere, kind of thing. So for me, and it launched in a bunch of things. I mean, seminars, and can you come speak to the group about goal setting, our sales team. I mean, I don't think I would have ever expected, and this is a true story. Edison, New Jersey. Do you know where that is?
I do. Yes.
I got a tweet because I hired a company in India to do all this like social media stuff. And I got a tweet back from this company in Edison, New Jersey. This is about 10 years ago, that needed to come in and tell their salespeople on training about goals. Long story short, I said, well, I'm sure I can create something. And it turned into a $40,000 engagement from a tweet from a darn little book. And it was never about money. It really wasn't. So we were able to contribute it back to a couple of the local charities there, which was really fun that the company worked with. So for me, it's a great experience to write a book. I highly recommend it to anyone. And it doesn't matter if anyone buys it. The experience makes you a better writer. It makes you a better listener. And when you write that email the next time, you become a little bit better. So for me, it was kind of fun. I'm no great writer by any means.
Right. But I do think, and part of having this podcast thing is like, I'll ask people to come on the show and they're like, well, I don't really know what I would say. And it's like, well, everybody's got something to share. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care who you are. You could be an ultra triathlon guy, whatever, you could do stuff like me. You could do anything, but like, there's going to be somebody that's going to be able to resonate with that story. And books are no different than doing something like this and sharing a story. Right. So you put that stuff out there and then it helps people. And then it seems to me that you're somebody that is like looking to help people, I would imagine, right?
That's the whole point. That was the whole point. And mine were nonfiction, of course. So it's there. Can we provide an idea that they could take? It's not fiction where it's a story. It's more nonfiction. Hey, use it. It might work.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, which is kind of fun. It was fun doing it.
Yeah. So, and then this new book, this is going to be kind of the stories and stuff like that, some of them that you shared just now, and, more about like the race itself, the one that you just did back in May. Yeah.
And it's going to be more related to, as I said, the experiences and stories more than, well, we were grinding at mile 120 of the run and everything was falling apart. Yeah, we'll talk about some of the horror, but the most of it is about what we saw with this course, which was, and I think we've retired it. I don't think it'll ever be done again because I have to say, it wasn't dangerous from cars getting hit on a bike or anything like that. The heat was like nothing any of us ever experienced. And we knew it would be bad. I don't think we knew it would be this bad where you're really kind of far out on the edge. So we're doing a new race next year and it'll be Northeast. We're going from Orlando to Cumberland, Maryland, and then Cumberland, Maryland to Point State Park in Pittsburgh and finish right at the city. So we're going to do a different one. So different, but this book will be more related to the humanity stories and what we actually saw going along the way. I mean, it was crazy. Some of the stuff we saw, mind-boggling.
Yeah. But did you say there was a timetable on that? Like, is there like
so
you're trying to get it done by?
Yeah. So Mike, the focus is if I can get it all wrapped up by the end of the year. And it's not just my stories. I've got the stories from the other athletes who had their own stories that, I wasn't there to see that, someone kind of picked them up on the side of the road and said, "Hey, you okay?"
Right.
So if I can get it done by year end, we'll have it launched out by the beginning, maybe first quarter 2022 would be nice. That'd be the target if I can pull it off.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let me know and I'll, check it out.
Sure.
I definitely want to check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll send one over to you for sure.
Yeah. Awesome.
You'll get some chuckles, I think.
There we go. So one of the other things that I saw on one of the websites when I was looking through here, maybe wayne-kurtz.com, and one of the things that I said in the intro was the coach part of it. So what type of things, I mean, I know you mentioned some speaking engagements that you've had, but do you work like one-on-one with people on certain things? And if you do, what is that thing? Or is it more like you said with the sales teams and that kind of stuff? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I've coached athletes in the ultra tri space for years, and I formalized it, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. But before that, I would always kind of give them advice and whatever else. So there's one aspect of that. I've done goals coaching for individuals in the past, which is all, not kind of like life coaching, but accountability of, I don't get paid until they get the goal done. Okay. So I reverse it. I flip it. So I'm going to push you to like get the goal done or whatever it is. Yes, it's not sports. It could be anything. I'm going to start my business. I'm going to be an entrepreneur, whatever. So I still have clients that I do that with on a regular basis. Speaking, yeah, I think I'm getting old. I mean, I don't know. I've flown 1 million miles. I missed 9/11 with my office in Tower 2 by 1 day, or we wouldn't have had this conversation.
Right.
Lost 180 people in my company, and you were there. I mean, you know how bad it is. Yeah. New York is my heart. I love New York, and for me, it's just I don't fly as much anymore, which means and there's not as much public speaking.
Yeah.
We did the Zoom stuff, Mike, with the craziness with the COVID, but it's just not the same until you get into a room with a bunch of people and you can get the emotion. So I've kind of pulled back on that to a certain degree. It's like I enjoy doing it, but the travel stuff kind of gets to me. I think I don't know. It's just age. Maybe that's it. Huh?
No. Yeah. I mean, I'm at the time of this recording, I'm getting on a plane and I'm flying out to Vegas tomorrow. And I'm not like, I mean, I am not afraid of flying or anything like that. It's just like the process, like to go to the airport, especially like, I mean, Newark is fine, like it's big and it's crazy, but like it's a big airport, so it's got stuff to do. So, so I'll have a drink and I'll get ready to get on the plane. But I don't know, it's just like the whole process, like the security thing, the checking in.
TSA,
forget it. I just hate it. Yeah.
I got an idea for you. Here's an idea for you.
Well, give it to me.
All right. So last year, number one thing everyone was buying during COVID, I pulled the trigger as a non-depreciable asset person. Like accounting, we don't really believe in like buying depreciable assets.
Right.
And I bought an RV. And I got to tell you, I have to tell you, honestly, it changes everything. I've gone on client. You take your time.
Yeah.
If you've been in one, I mean, I highly recommend it. It's life-changing. And for me, I love it. I've gone across the country 3 times in it. Middle of winter, before tax season. It's been fun. So an idea for you if you're traveling a ton.
Right. Which I'm not, but I think that's maybe because of the fact that I don't really like to go through that process. So maybe that's an opportunity for me to change up the process a little bit and approach it in a different way. So I like that idea. I could see myself being an RV guy. Can you drive an RV, like big wheels, that kind of thing?
You can rent one. You'll be good to go. And it eliminates this. It eliminates that in and out, right? Pack the thing at the house. Pack it, put it in the car, take the car, put it in baggage claim, baggage claim off, into the hotel, back forth. It does eliminate that pain and no TSA.
Right. Yeah. I like that. I like that. So before as we're getting closer to the end of this episode, one of the things that you've been talking about quite a bit, and I was hopeful that you could share maybe like some insight into it. So you had the goals book, and then you're also talking about goals just now. Can you give us like maybe some insight onto like developing goals and the accountability side of that? Maybe like it could even be like a high level view of kind of what you work on with people. But if you could talk a little bit about that, that would be sweet.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the thing that I do a little bit different, and it just worked for me, was the idea of using a pen and a piece of paper, right? Because the Harvard studies show you learn a lot more when you actually physically write something down, taking notes versus typing it in the computer. So the way I do it, typical goal setting, depending upon, each scenario, is you write your goals down, you put a timeline, not a month, a specific date. Okay. And it could be 5 years. I try to keep them short because we don't know, especially with the world we live in today. 6 months to a year, great. You can see where you want to be in 10 years. But this is what I do a little different. I write them down every day. The same thing every day.
Okay.
At 4:30 in the morning, I do my journal, write my stuff down. I write it. I physically write it. I bought a good journal. It's like the same thing. Do you store your jewelry in a Walmart box that's worth a lot of money? Probably not. Same thing with the journal. Buy a good journal, but don't go to Walmart. Spend a little bit of money, get a nice one, nice paper, and write in the journal. So I write it down and it's not financial. It could be a whole bunch of different goals, life, family, whatever else. And I do the same thing every day, because one thing I learned when I did this the first year in Vermont, Mount Snow, used to have a home in Mount Snow, crazy loving skiing, is New Year's Day is the day I write down the next phase of this year, that kind of thing, and not resolutions. These are things I got to get done. And if I don't get them, I just push them out or I just take them off, because you got to change them. And what happens is when you write them, you'll achieve more of them. I don't know why it works. I'm not a scientist, but it works.
Yeah.
If you take your top 4 or 5 goals, put them on an index card and just stick it in your pocket. Don't do anything else. Don't put it on the wall. Don't put it on the mirror. Put it in your pocket. You know why? Because when you go to your pocket, you're going to feel that. And you say, I just wasted time watching this stupid movie. And I should have been able to set up this company that I talked about doing my own gig on the side, and I'm still playing around with it. So for me, it's writing it. I believe in writing it. And I also believe more than anything, you got to have a deadline date on it. And that works for me. I mean, I'm anal on it. Like, I mean, I'm really on it. Like, I will go crazy. And if it doesn't happen, you refocus. It might, and things change. But if you keep the goal short enough and make sure that they're important, right? And then got to get both spouses, if they're married, on the same page.
Yeah.
They have theirs, you have yours. So when I talk to clients many times and we're doing goal stuff, I got to make sure, like, each of them have separate goals. You got to have your own. And then there's going to be some that are kind of somewhat together. And you got to come to some idea, like, how are you going to make this work? But it's all about, to me, accountability, putting a client to the carpet. I do. Like, I coach, I tell them. It's no different like in baseball, right? You got to throw that curveball. I don't care how you're coming in with a curveball, but you got to practice that curveball. It's the same thing on this. You practice goal setting every single day. That's the way I do it.
No, I like that, because I mean, with anything really, I mean, it just makes it like top of mind. I mean, you said 4:30 in the morning. We just have very different sleep schedules. So 4:30 in the morning might be like 8:30 in the morning for me. But at the same time, if I do that the first thing first thing in the morning for me, that makes it top of mind. And then I know like all day that's something that I had to do. So no, I think that's a very good way to approach it. Now, going off of that, we always talk about goals on this. I like to talk about goals with people. So what are some goals maybe that you wrote down this morning? What are you trying to accomplish outside of the book? I know the book's one of them, I'm sure. So what are some other things you're hoping to accomplish over the next year? Are you going to run another race anytime soon? Yeah.
So that's one that's been on like every day here. After I put this race on this year, and after we got through this thing, and again, I've only been back a month and a half since it ended. I kind of kept putting down, like, when I got back, I'm trying to recover. Should I put on another one? So then it turned into, I'm going to create another one, not the same course, but to come and end up in my hometown, right at Point State Park in Pittsburgh. Is that doable? So every day I'm writing this down for, like, okay, I got to make a decision on this. And the decision happened last Tuesday, whatever that date was. I said, I need to make a decision.
Yep. August 3rd. August 3rd. That's my birthday. Fun fact.
Hey, happy birthday.
There you go. Thank you.
That's perfect. On your birthday, Mike. Perfect. So I was thinking about you.
Exactly.
And the idea then came to fruition, and I planned out the whole race course, everything else, had the team send out a social media post. Everyone went crazy. We're going to have it again. So I said, and my wife was like not aware of any of this.
Yeah.
Not at all. Like, you're going to do that. We're going to put this on again. So I think that was one that kind of started when I came back from the race. Right now, I have every single day got to finish the book. I got the title now that I've just kind of worked with. I need to have it done by December 31st. That's every day I'm writing that, which means I have to write 500 words a day. Every day is 500. If I don't get 5, that's a goal. I write it down. I got to write 500 words. So I go through about 7 things.
Yeah.
I've got an acquisition for my business on there, and we just started. And I said, I need to make a decision on the negotiation for an acquisition. That one is actually the end of September. It's like the 28th. So I put a pinpoint on that. Those are some current ones.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them are, things I'm doing for the God kids, things we're doing. I'm married to a Greek woman.
Okay.
There's lots of Greeks in New York, like killer restaurants.
That's true. Yes.
Right. You got the big diners on the island and everything else. We have family there. So next year, actually on my list there, which is in every day, we will spend 1 month, 4 weeks next September in Greece for our 20th anniversary. It's a goal. Cool. Hey, yeah, we want to do that. So I do write them down.
Awesome. No, I love that. Also, one of the questions that I failed to ask, and you mentioned it again, how long does it take you to recover from something like you just did? Like the race you just did, how long does the recovery process take?
Yeah, this one was really long. It could be age, and I think more importantly, it was age and heat.
Yeah.
The heat just fried me.
Kicks your ass. Yeah.
Usually I'm okay. In about 2 weeks, I'm back running. Not long, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
It has taken to feel 100% better almost 4 weeks. Now I'm good now. I'm running fine. I did a 100-mile ride last weekend on the bike, so I'm okay. But it has taken a month to recover. And it wasn't just me. I asked some of the other folks that raced it, and they were in the same boat. I was sleeping 13 hours a day for the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like falling asleep in the office on the computer. Like I'm a mess.
Head on the keyboard kind of thing.
And I shouldn't be this tired, but this one really took its toll, and it clearly was this extreme heat.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, of course. Yeah, it has to be. I mean, even today, it was like 97 in New Jersey.
It's unbelievable.
I'm tired and I didn't even run. I drove. Yeah. And then we walked into the TJ Maxx. I needed to buy a shirt for my trip. So I was like, boy, am I gassed right now? But
it is hot. I know. Pittsburgh, same thing. It's like 96 here. It's hot as heck right now.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah.
So, all right. So this has been amazing so far. So what I want to do now is move the show into our closing segment, which we call Under the Spotlight. So the Spotlighters have been listening to Mike Hamm and Wayne Kurtz talk for the last 45 minutes or so. So what would be one thing that you would want them to walk away from this episode with? So you are under the spotlight.
I think the biggest thing, and again, I'm going to take it from the perspective as consulting with individuals over the years in the financial space. If there's ever a time, since last time we've seen this was 2009, to start your own business is now. The opportunity, and I say that because we saw it with the U economy and all of this happened in 2009 after the crash, real estate blow up and everything else. And with what has changed in this space because of COVID, I tell everyone, I said, if you've been at the company for 20 years and you're like, yeah, I'm kind of bored, Wayne. It's like the same thing. I mean, I got a bonus and I did okay, and I'm comfortable. And I would say, you've talked to me in the past about going on your own. You have a potential opportunity to the marketplace to provide value. I always say this: what is the worst thing that can happen? It probably won't. You won't die. You're not going to die. You start your own business, you're probably not going to die. And I tell everyone, I said, it's not made for everyone, but I have more introvert computer software people who I would have never thought would start their own company in completely different spaces that have nothing to do with programming. And I tell everyone, I said, until you give it a go, it's worth a try. And again, there's always the financials. Can you cover it? That kind of thing. But I do think in this COVID world where everything is changed and it's going to continue to stay changed, just go to Manhattan, go down to Wall Street. Half of Wall Street is working at home. I mean, they're not even down at Wall Street. We were there about 3 weeks ago, I guess. I was in the city. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. So I do think there's an opportunity to take advantage of what has happened in the entrepreneurial space. I think that's one for sure. And then I always tell everyone, try something outside the norm, like whatever it is, because as soon as you get to my age, and I'm getting there, I'm like 50, going to be 54. I look at what has happened in the last 24 months. I lost my mom and dad last year, both of them, who are our best friends.
Right.
Gone.
Yeah.
I have two friends. I mean, we all know this. And I have two friends right now. One has 30 days to live. He's 56 with cancer with kids. Like, it goes quick. Yeah. And my mom always told me, when you get to 40, it really flies. You need to make a decision if you're going to go and have your own business by then, or it's too comfortable to not do it. But I would say do some stuff. Because next thing you know, we're going to funerals all the time. That's all we do is go to funerals. And beyond COVID, I mean, we had plenty of people we know that died of COVID, like everyone does. So it's that, because it goes quick. And get an RV. RV world is like unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great one to end on too. So
there you go.
Awesome. I love it. That was a great under the spotlight. So, start your own business, do something different. all that kind of stuff. I love it. So if people need more Wayne, which after this episode, I can't imagine they would not need more of you, where can they go to get it?
Yeah. So my main website for under my personal stuff, it's just Wayne-Kurtz. So it's WAYNE-KURTZ.com. Off of that, there's racing platforms and a whole bunch of stuff that people kind of do for me, thank God. And they keep managing. We need to do some updates, but everything's there. Emails there, phone numbers there. You know, I'm a Pittsburgh guy, but I'm like a New Yorker by heart. I mean, I've spent so many years in New York, and I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that it comes back like it always does. It always has.
Yep.
And you know, it was good to see a couple of weeks ago, there were people out, like people were shopping, like there were people back in the city.
Yeah.
You know, and again, to me, it's like I always view Pittsburgh as like Northeast. We've always been that quasi, right? We're on the fence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. All right. So we'll put Wayne-Kurtz.com in the show notes, along with the morningspotlight.com, which is the show's website, and the morningspotlight@gmail.com, which is the show's email address. Wayne, thank you so much for coming on with us today. This was great. A little bit different than what we normally do for our real estate stuff, but I think that all of it is still interwoven, interconnected into the grand scheme of what we're talking about. So thank you so much for coming on with us.
Super. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Of course. And everybody else, thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.